It's your boy Nix on the Mix, coming back with another piece of content on the channel here today. I want to show you guys 3 different methods that you can use to make your vocals sit better inside of a 2-track beat. So usually when you have a song where you feel like the vocal is just not interacting with the beat, it's kind of like sitting on top of it, there's a couple of methods that we can use, all different, to fix that issue. So let's go over it right now. So the very first thing I like to use, a very simple thing, is a Kramer master tape. Now let's understand something, that tape has always been known to give a little bit of compression, right? But it also does a very musical thing to the sound, especially with the way that we have a preset right here in master tape. It not only gives us character, but it also does something to the sound. Let me play the song first so you can hear what it sounds like, then I'll bring in the master tape.
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades, we ain't gon' get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down, when the whip slow down? Real problems make the real come around. Real friends, real niggas, how many of us? Real friends, real.
Alright guys, so you got a general idea of what you should do. So this is the preset that I use specifically. Pretty much, there's not that many options on Kramer master tape anyway, so this is a good starting point for vocals. You want to do this preset right here, vocal, and this, and then what I do is I turn off all of the feedback almost, and then I might bring down the delay time a little bit too. You got to understand that with tape, there is a time shift, right? So that's kind of what makes the vocal sound a little bit more interactive with the beat. Because imagine if you were running, you was running at full speed, then somebody came in front of you. What would you do? You would stop, right? Or you would slow down a little bit. So that's what the tape does. It makes like a digital recording is so perfect and everything is on time. For example, the air, like the density of air too. Like if you talk and your voice is going through like air and stuff like that, it's obviously gonna slow down the sound wave, obviously. But in digital, you don't really have some of those, things that your human ear is already adapted to. Like you have a perfect recording that's on time perfectly. So I use the Kramer master tape to add non-linearities, right? Add some of the, the characteristics of tape and do a little time shift to make the vocal slow down and give a bump into the beat. It's bumping, now it's grooving with the beat. It's a part of it. I usually turn off the wow and flutter, bring it down, noise is down. Make sure you watch out for the low pass filter too. If it makes your vocals a little too dark, don't worry about it. Just, bring it all the way up. And yeah, let me play it with and without. Let's go.
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades, we ain't gon' get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down, when the whip slow down? Real problems make the real come around. Real friends, real niggas, how many of us? Real friends, real niggas, how many of them? No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. I don't. Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades, we ain't gon' get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down, when the whips?
So as you can see, like I was saying at the end, when I was clicking bypass in and out, you kind of heard like a stutter or a time shift. So apparently that's what tape is supposed to do. If you guys want me to do a little bit more digging, that's just my personal theory on tape. I've never really used it, but I just know like a word like feedback and delay time, it makes it obvious that just the overall nature of tape, there's a delay, there's a little bump, there's a little groove. So that kind of just makes it more human, and it just simulates kind of like the natural way that sound travels, like it hits a wall or it goes through a sofa or it goes through whatever, it goes through the air, then it hits your ear. So it sounds more natural to you. So that's how you make vocals sit a little bit more naturally into the beat. All right, the next method that we have is we're gonna do something a little bit crazy, a little dynamic EQ on the 2-track beat, right? So first thing you wanna do is create a mono bus, right? You can pick any bus, right? And then I call it my vocal trigger. Now you wanna use a dynamic EQ specifically is what I like. And you wanna trigger it to the vocal, right? That you already have, right? So your vocal trigger. And I'm using the Waves X F6. You can use anyone that has That's a dynamic EQ. But also, I like the Waves F6 because it has mid side. Now, I don't know honestly if you can use another compressor that doesn't have another EQ that doesn't have mid side, because we don't really want to alter the beat. Like if you just completely cut out a little hole in the 2-track beat, it's gonna sound awkward. So I like to do a small cut of about 1 dB, maybe even less than that, right? In the beat on a dynamic EQ, because it opens it up. Let me show you right away. Okay, let's play it with and without, and just listen how like there's just a small hole in the beat that opens up the vocals. Listen, come on.
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades. We ain't gonna get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down? When the whip slow down? Real problems made the real come around. Real friends, real niggas. How many of us? Real friends, real niggas. How many of them? No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. I don't. Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades. We ain't gonna get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down? When the whips.
So you guys gotta listen when you make music, right? This should be your mindset too when you're mixing vocals. Okay, like what does the beat have and how can I make my vocal conform around the beat? For example, like in this beat, listen to the saxophone. It has a lot of reverb already, right? So I'm kind of understanding that like if I want my reverb to come out, I should kind of make a little hole just in the middle just to open up the vocal. And now you hear the reverb, you hear the breathing, you hear everything a little bit better. So I use the dynamic EQ. Make sure you have a tight Q and don't do too much. Do not use a static EQ. I see some people using a static EQ and no, that's terrible. That is misinformation. Never do that. You can get away with a little bit. In reality, your mindset should always be, how can I build my vocal around this beat, especially a 2-track beat, because you can't really control it like that. Like you don't have the stems and you can't change the elements, right? So with a 2-track beat, you can do a little sprinkle of EQ dynamically to open it up, like you heard again. And you want to make sure that the range isn't too much. So my range was like 1.7, and you know I'm watching it and it was only doing half a dB, which is very harmless, and it was on mid mode, right? So it's only just down the middle, right? There's a lot going on down the middle. Think about it. The kick, the snare, the vocal, there's so much going on. A general rule of thumb for this one specifically is about 1K, right? Frequency range, because that's where a vocal's usually there, right? So there's people who say, oh, mid-side EQ is bad and dynamic EQ is bad, but I think that if you use it moderately, it's a very good tool that can open up the beat. So let me play it again and let you hear it, okay?
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades. We ain't gonna get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down? When the whip slow down? Real problems made the real come around. Real friends, real niggas. How many of us? Real friends, real niggas. How many of them? No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. I don't. Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades.
Okay, and especially with this method, let's always make sure that we have a tight Q, right? Look at the Q.
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades. We ain't gonna get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down?
Okay, a nice, tight, little harmless Q, tight Q. So we're not affecting the beat too much, but we're just making a little bit space, and we're triggering it only when it's the lead vocal, okay? So that's very harmless, but a great way you can use to open up your 2-track beat to have your vocal come through. You can hear your delays better. You can hear your reverb better. Now everything is just interacting better. That's the most important part, is interaction between the vocal and the beat. Because when you're mixing, right, it's like a conversation. You got to think about it like a conversation, right? When you first listen to that beat, the beat is going to talk to you, and the beat is going to tell you like what lyrics you should write and also how you should mix the vocal, right? So you listen to the beat and let the beat tell you like what's already here and what needs to, like, how do I need to conform my vocal around that beat, right? Because you can't really control a 2-track beat like that, right? And then from there you make decisions, right? That should be your mindset, you know, like For example, let's say you have a door and you have a key, right? Your vocal is the key and the 2-track beat is the door, right? So what do, right? When you put the key in and it doesn't want to work into the door, well, obviously common sense would tell you that you have to get a brand new key, right? So you have to make your key work for the door. Obviously, with a 2-track beat, you're not gonna just cut it up. That would be like taking the whole door off your house and replacing it, right? And that doesn't make any much sense. So you should think about it like that. Make your vocal conform to the 2-track beat because you don't have control over the 2-track beat. Now, when it comes to leveling, a quick tip that I always use is I use the snare as a guide to tell me where my beat should be leveled at, right? That's one thing. So let's look at this.
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades. Slow down, real problems made a real come around. Real friends, real niggas, how many of us? Real friends, real niggas, how many of them know?
So use your snare as a guide to tell you, because the snare is a consistent element that's coming right down the middle, right? And that's kind of where your vocal is at, right? So using the snare as a guide is perfect because there's no harm in making the snare and the vocal follow each other, right? So that's a rule of thumb that you should always go by. The snare and the vocal should generally be by each other. Okay, so that's another thing to think about. Okay, so lastly, the last method we have here, a little cheat code that you can do with Vocal Rider, right, is you want to go to your beat and you want to make a mono sidechain, right? So just pick any bus, right, and then put it to like 0 full send, and you put it on pre-fader, right? Then you want to go to Vocal Rider. Then after that, what you want to do is you want to find that same bus that you made. So what, bus 7, right? Let me rename it, and I'm going to call it beat, just to make it easier to find, right? So now, what do we have here? Now we have Vocal Rider on, you'll put Vocal Rider on your vocal bus or your audio track. Now Vocal Rider is legit listening to the 2-track beat and saying, okay, I know what the vocal is, right? And I know what the beat sounds like. Now Vocal Rider is gonna do the rest for you. It's autopilot. Now I wouldn't recommend this method, and every song is different, but that's the way you could do it too right there. I'm showing you guys. Now with this button right here, the music, only worry about this. This is the sensitivity. So with that, pretty much it means Vocal Rider, listen to my 2-track beat more. Okay, listen to it more. And that's good for the fluctuations in audio. For example, like, the 808 is gonna hit sometimes and is not gonna hit sometimes in this beat, especially. Let me show y'all. So it's telling Vocal Rider like, oh, you gotta react more to this beat. It depends on the material though, because sometimes you might have a beat that's hitting so fast, boom, 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 boom. Like you might want Vocal Rider to react a little bit quicker to it, So you'll use the musical sensitivity to drive it more or less, depending on how it sounds. Play around with it, and then after that, follow the snare like I said, and just gauge it with this. If you want to maybe boost it up a little bit more, you do that, or you bring it back down a little bit more, you do that. So those are all the methods that I have here today, guys. But I would also always recommend, mindset-wise, always listen to the beat and figure out what the vocals need based around the beat, right? Build your vocals, your rap vocals around the 2-track beat, right? And you're gonna get a perfect vocal sound every time like that, regardless of any EQ you use or Vocal Rider or any tape that you use, okay? Like these should be accessories to help you get it sounding like even better, right? These methods right here should not be the reason why it works, you know what I mean? So use them wisely, all right? So I just want to say thanks a lot for watching the channel. I appreciate you, my YouTube family. Let me know if you want to see any other type of different content down below. I really appreciate you guys. Peace, my YouTube family. Thank you.
Against the odds, I put my faith in God. I do not do facades. We ain't gonna get involved. Who gon' ride when the chips down, when the whip slow down? Real problems made a real come around. Real friends, real niggas, how many of us? Real friends, real niggas, how many of them? No, I don't believe when you say that you love us. No, I don't believe when you say that you love us.